be a part of the minor. तो उसमें हम लोग ने शुरू में किया था कि व्हाट इज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर, एक दो सेशन हम लोग ने उस पर लगाए थे। फिर हम लोग ने किया था कि अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स क्या हैं, कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्या हैं, and then of course we started with the P&L balance sheet, and then we did a case study जिसमें हम लोग ने उसका projections किया था, P&L का, बैलेंस शीट का, कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट का, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स हम लोग ने एक फिर डिटेल्ड केस स्टडी करी थी जिसमें सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स थे। उसमें हमारा सर्वाइवल रेवेन्यू, कंट्रीब्यूशन, ये सब चीजें भी उसमें थी। सो ऑल ऑफ दिस इज अ पार्ट ऑफ योर सिलेबस। ओके रोनित?
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, do we have to know all the technical terms and their meanings and like exact meanings of the terms?
So Ronit, the paper will be a mix of both theory and numericals, but I will never be asking you direct questions like define this or define that, because you're not school students anymore. It will always be application based. So for example, agar concepts हमें तुमसे पूछने, तो I will give you a situation and say कि okay, in this kind of a situation, which concept do you think applies? So it will be like that. It will never be a direct question कि इसको कैसे डिफाइन करते हैं, उसको कैसे, ऐसा नहीं होगा।
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Okay. Ma'am, also in the mail it was mentioned that we have to type it on the Word document. So it would be more convenient for us to write it on a piece of paper and scan it and send it to you.
देखो हम क्यों इसलिए तुम लोग से स्कैन का नहीं बोल रहे थे, हम इसलिए वर्ड मांग रहे थे, बिकॉज उसमें क्या कि हम ट्रैक चेंज मोड में आई कैन गिव माई करेक्शंस, कमेंट्स, मार्क्स, एंड देन आई कैन सेंड इट बैक टू यू एंड यू कैन नो दैट। पेपर वाले उसमें जब भेजोगे तो एक तो उसमें आई कांट मेक करेक्शंस, so I can then just share the marks with you. So what would you prefer?
And also because it's tough to solve numericals on a Word document.
नहीं, न्यूमेरिकल में ऐसा कर सकते हो, जैसे थ्योरी वाला आप टाइप कर दो, और न्यूमेरिकल में जैसे सपोज तुमने किसी पेपर पे हाथ से किया है तो उसकी फोटो खींच के उसको एज एन इमेज उसमें इंसर्ट कर सकते हो।
Yes, ma'am, but it would be a tedious process because we have less time and we have to do all these things. So it would be convenient for us that we can do just one thing, either do it on a paper or either do it.
ठीक है, तो वो कर दो, लेकिन इफ यू गिव मी अ वर्जन जिसमें कि हम मतलब आई कैन नॉट मेक चेंजेस और एडिट, तो फिर हम उस पे मतलब अलग से मार्क्स दे देंगे, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स यू कैन get in touch with me later for the marks. Then I will not be able to edit the file.
Yes, ma'am. We can ask the doubts later if we have any about the paper or something.
ठीक है, ठीक है। अच्छा, अब नाउ लिसन कि कैसे होएगा। आपका 1:30 बजे का एंडिंग टाइम है फॉर द माइनर। ओके, सो व्हाट वी विल डू इज एट 12 noon sharp, Arshita, you also keep this in mind, at 12 noon sharp we will be emailing the question paper to all of you. सीधे 12 बजे डॉट पे हम लोग ईमेल कर देंगे। उसके बाद आप उसको सॉल्व करिए, ठीक है? तो 1 घंटा है आपके पास, तो आपने 1 बजे तक उसको सॉल्व किया। अब हो सकता है किसी के पास कुछ नेटवर्क इश्यू है, कुछ क्या है, डाउनलोड नहीं हो रहा, ये वो, उसके लिए हम आपको आधा घंटा एक्स्ट्रा दे रहे हैं। तो आपको 1:30 बजे तक अपना पेपर ईमेल करना है टू बोथ मी एंड हर्षिता, एंड माय ईमेल आईडी विल बी माय याहू आईडी व्हिच आई एम writing here because I don't want my other mailboxes to get crowded. Okay, and Harshita, I have put all of this in an email also and send it to them.
Okay, ma'am, will do.
This is my Yahoo ID, Harshita, singh_shweta@yahoo.co.in. और 1:30 बजे के बाद जिसने भी सबमिट किया उसका -10। तो आप लोग पूरी कोशिश करिएगा कि आप 1:30 बजे से बहुत पहले ही अपना वो सबमिट कर दें। प्लीज इंश्योर दैट यू मार्क अ कॉपी बोथ टू हर्षिता एंड मी, सो दैट इन केस ईदर वन ऑफ अस इज फेसिंग एन इशू, देन एटलीस्ट वी हैव द टाइम स्टैम्प कि आपका ये रिसीव हो गया हमारे मेल बॉक्स में एट दैट पर्टिकुलर टाइम। ओके, एंड हर्षिता मेंशन कि आपके पास ऑप्शनल है कि आप उसको हाथ से लिख के उसको स्कैन करके भेजना चाहते हैं, कि आप उसको वर्ड में भेजना चाहते हैं, बट जो लोग स्कैन करके भेजेंगे उनको नेचुरली हम उसमें मार्क्स देके उनको वापस नहीं शेयर कर सकते। देन आई विल कीप द मार्क्स विद मी एंड देन दे कैन गेट इन टच with you or me regarding the solutions. ठीक है?
Okay, ma'am. Done.
Anything else about the exam that Ronit, Abhinav, Aniket, you guys want to understand, which I have not explained so far?
No, ma'am, everything seems fine.
ठीक है, सो हर्षिता एक ये ईमेल भी भेज देना, और तुम इन लोग से पूछ लेना कि विच इज द ईमेल आईडी जिसपे वी कैन सेंड द क्वेश्चन पेपर विच एवरीवन कैन देन एक्सेस। अभिनव क्या होगा वो?
Ma'am, generally, actually, Samriddhi Di and I, we share on Moodle also, Teams also, on webmail also, and on WhatsApp
ठीक
group also.
ठीक है, ठीक है। तो 12 बजे डॉट आपके पास पेपर पहुंच जाएगा। आपके पास 1.5 घंटे का टाइम रहेगा 1 घंटे का पेपर सॉल्व करने के लिए और उसको अपलोड करने के लिए। और जो लोग 1:30 बजे के बाद उसको सबमिट करेंगे उनका सीधे -10 हो जाएगा। हर्षिता ये चीज क्लियरली मेल में लिख देना, ताकि कोई भी फिर हमको ये नहीं हो कि 3 घंटे बाद पेपर दे रहे हैं कि हमारा नेटवर्क इशू था एंड ऑल दैट।
Ma'am, excuse me.
हाँ
Sure,
बिना।
ma'am.
Ma'am, one of the student asked me, like, what is the criteria for marking scheme for presentation?
जो प्रेजेंटेशन दोगे तुम लोग टीम में?
Yes, ma'am. That.
ओके, फर्स्ट को जो है, ओके, सो इन दैट अभिनव व्हाट आई वांट इज दैट एवरी मेंबर ऑफ द टीम, उनको आपने रोल असाइन किया हुआ है। समवन इज द सीईओ, समवन इज द मार्केटिंग ऑफिसर एंड समबडी इज द टेक्नोलॉजी ऑफिसर एंड सो ऑन। सो एवरीबडी will be speaking, okay, because I want to see these people also, because the most of the people are not available in class, so I want everyone to be speaking। and then of course जो आप लोग अपना presentation दोगे और उसके बाद जो document submit करोगे उसमें I am hoping that everyone would be contributing। it won't be कि 5 लोग का ग्रुप है उसमें एक बंदा काम कर रहा है और 4 बैठे हुए हैं। so it will be based on your presentation जिसमें सब लोग बात करेंगे, and of course on your document submission also।
Okay.
अच्छा, एक और चीज बताओ हर्षिता एंड अभिनव कि जो तुम लोग का एंड टर्म वाला पेपर है, इज दैट अ ग्रुप असाइनमेंट और इज दैट अ इंडिविजुअल असाइनमेंट?
Ma'am, I think that was group assignment, which was like preferred in the that survey which was conducted. But Abhinav can tell better.
बताओ अभिनव।
मैम, बच्चों ने तो यही कहा है कि मैम जैसा कहेंगी।
नहीं नहीं, मतलब देखो, द थिंग इज कि आपका जो माइनर 1 और मेजर है वो तो इंडिविजुअल हो गया। उसके बाद ये जो आपका फर्स्ट वाला प्रेजेंटेशन है ये आपका टीम वाला हो गया। तो अब जो सेकंड प्रेजेंटेशन, आपका सेकंड जो टर्म पेपर है, वो तुम लोग टीम में ही चाहते हो, ग्रुप में ही चाहते हो, कि वो इंडिविजुअल चाहते हो?
हम टीम में ही कर लेंगे वो भी।
टीम में ही करोगे?
Yes, ma'am.
तो फिर in that case Abhinav, please tell everyone that I would again expect all members of the team to contribute readily, and we'll again have presentation so that I see these people, because my biggest concern is that in the class, except for the 3 of you, there are very few regular students and 80 people are registered, 80. So I am just wondering as to what the other people are doing. They are not participating in class, nothing. We can't have marks for attendance, we can't have grade drops and all. तो अगर आप ग्रुप असाइनमेंट कर रहे हैं तो उसमें सबका एक्टिव प्रेजेंटेशन हमें एविडेंट रहना चाहिए।
Yes, ma'am. मैम, I will
and also communicate that in case there are groups, which I know there are, जिसमें एक बंदा काम कर रहा है और 4 ऐसे ही बैठे हुए हैं, या they are not even bothering to attend meetings or get together or do whatever, then those group leaders should very confidentially write in an email to me or my TAs that इस ग्रुप में इन लोगों ने contribute किया, इन्होंने नहीं किया है, so that we are fair to people who are working and we are not saying कि एक बंदे ने अच्छा काम किया तो सब लोग उसके भेड़ चाल में सबको मार्क्स मिल रहे हैं। ओके अभिनव?
Yes, ma'am.
तो प्लीज कन्वे दिस एंड प्लीज इंश्योर कि ऐसे हो। Okay, so we have discussed the syllabus, we have discussed the mode in which the exam would be held. Harshita will be sending you an email based on this. अभिनव, ये तुमने क्या शेयर किया है?
मैम, ये वो है जिसमें पूरी शीट है जो बच्चे मतलब टीम्स की है।
अच्छा, तो जस्ट ये हर्षिता इसको डाउनलोड कर लो। I think you have already sent it to us, ना अभिनव?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, so मतलब we have to keep in mind Harshita that we find सारे groups में that everyone is participating। ये वरना उस टाइम बिना appear किए people are just getting marks, that is not a great thing।
Okay, ma'am, we'll do that. We'll try to find out if they are participating or not.
ठीक है, तो एक तो इनके सिलेबस बता देना, इनका एग्जाम का बता देना, वो माइनस मतलब पेनल्टी का बता देना फॉर लेट सबमिशंस, और ये सब एक ईमेल में इनको भेज देना, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स वी विल बी रिमेंबर दैट वी हैव टू सेंड इट एट 12 sharp.
Okay, ma'am.
ठीक है. Okay, anything else before I move on with? So remember that cash budget onwards आपके syllabus में minor नहीं है. ठीक है, we are doing that, but वो minor में नहीं है. ठीक है. And आप लोग का exam I think is starting from 19th and it is till 23rd, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's the date.
So that means 24th, that is Friday, we'll have a class, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
ठीक है, ठीक है. But इस Friday I will not hold a class so that you guys can prepare for your minors and अच्छे से minor करना. I will ensure that the difficulty level of the paper is at least medium so that only people who are regular and who are reading and who are understanding are able to score very well. Okay, so that also I'm announcing. So 17th we will not be having a class. You come directly and take your minors, and 24th we will have a class right after the minors get over on 23rd. They're getting over on Thursday. Okay, Harshita?
Yes, ma'am, noted.
ठीक है, ठीक है. So ये convey कर देना. Okay, so anything else about the exam or the syllabus or the mode and all that before I carry on? Okay, fine. ठीक है. So now I'm going to share my screen. In the last class, we had done the cash budget case study, and now we have to do the numericals, and there are very few numericals in this. Basically the first 2-3 chapters which are there, the first 2-3 numericals which are there are based on an example in the book, so that book is not available, so we are doing it from question number 7 onwards, and let me see where that is. And I will be putting up all of this. So basically we'll do one large numerical on the cash budget, and then we can move on to the cash conversion cycle ratios, which are simple. Okay, so is this visible, Harshita?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, great. Just a second. Okay. Now look at question number 7. Artero Corporation is a traditional toy products retailer that recently started an internet-based subsidiary that sells toys online. A markup is added on goods the company purchases from manufacturers for resale. Sven Artero, the company president, is preparing for a meeting with Jennifer Brown, who's a loan officer with First Banco Corporation, to review year-end financing requirements. After discussions with the company's marketing manager Rolf Eriksson and finance manager Lisa Erdinger, sales over the last 3 months of 2017 are forecasted to be the following. You have October, November, December sales, and in thousands it is $1,000, $1,000, $1,500, and $3,000. Okay. Now, as we have seen, the cash budget can be calculated in 2-3 ways. So naturally, in your exam, in your major, we will never give you a very detailed cash budget to make because you'll take 1 hour just to make it. So we'll give you small parts of the cash budget. Okay, so what you need to understand is the complete thing, and we can give you small aspects of cash budgets as questions. Okay, so just a second. Okay, now Artero's balance sheet at the end, just a second, let me just move up. At the end of September 2017 looked like this. We had cash of 50,000. We have accounts receivables of 700,000. We had inventories of 500,000, and we had net fixed assets of 750,000, giving us a total asset size of 2,000. And in accounts payables, we had nothing. In notes payable, we had 800,000. We had long-term debt of 400, which gave us a total liabilities or external liabilities of 1,200, and we had equity of 800,000. Okay. Now, okay, before I carry on, just a question that I wanted to ask. Abhinav, Aniket, Bhavya, and Ronit, Are all four of you, has anyone done the core courses out of the four of you? I'm just asking as a feedback, something came into my mind.
Are you talking about Msl405 and 306?
305, 306, 307?
I have done 305 and 306. Last time,
307 नहीं किया है?
because last time I applied for it, but they didn't give me.
तो 305 और 306 तो बेसिकली आइडिएशन टाइप के क्लासेस थे ना. न्यू वेंचर क्रिएशन कैसे होता है, आइडिएशन क्या होता है?
Yes, ma'am.
अच्छा. एंड अनिकेत, what about you?
Ma'am, Aniket has written in the chat box. He has done.
He has done MSL 305 और 307 किया अनिकेत? और रोनित तुम बताओ.
Yes, ma'am.
तुमने कौन कौन से किए?
Ma'am, 305 and 306.
भाग्य तो भाग गया है. देखो 305 और 306 स्टूडेंट्स, फ्रॉम व्हाट आई हैव हर्ड, आई हैव नॉट टॉट दिस कोर्सेज, बट व्हाट आई हैव हर्ड इज कि इसमें बहुत ही आइडिएशन और वो कैसे किया जाता है उस तरह का रहता था. एंड अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल यूज्ड टू कम एंड टॉक अबाउट देयर ओन एक्सपीरियंसेस, बट बहुत टेक्निकल चीजें तुम लोग ने नहीं सीखी हैं. मतलब टेक्निकल व्हेन आई से इट इज वेरी अनलाइक दिस कोर्स जिसमें आप टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट सीख रहे हो या कैलकुलेशंस कर रहे हो एंड ऑल दैट. तो तुम लोग को समझ में आ रहा है ये विदाउट डूइंग 307?
Some things are like quite new to us, but yeah, we are trying to understand it, and it's not like कि बिल्कुल समझ नहीं आ रहा है, but yes, ma'am, we can understand most of it.
Okay. But don't you think that as a core course you should first understand basic financial concepts, and then maybe as an elective then you can look at pitching and business plans and all that. Once you've understood basics of some foundational management courses like finance and marketing and strategy and operations and all that, as an entrepreneur, I'm saying, not specifically for this course, but as an entrepreneur. Aniket has written, I've done some online courses because of which I could understand. Okay, so Aniket, what did you do? The Y Combinator ke courses? Okay, so the reason why I was asking you all this is students, because this minor in entrepreneurship, for which this is an elective, is supposed to be taught in a way that you do some core courses and then you do electives. Now, this financial management concepts are very new to most of you. So I believe that it should be there as a core for all students, because understanding finance is critical for any entrepreneur. You know, your business plan cannot be ready without having the financial implications there. So maybe we should have it as a core course. And after you've done similar core courses in marketing, in strategy, in operations, how to scale your business forward, then maybe we can have a course which then helps you assimilate all of this into a business plan and then submit that business plan. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
और यू थिंक कि नहीं मैम कभी भी कुछ भी पढ़ा दें हम लोग सब समझ लेंगे?
मतलब कोर कोर्सेस में हुआ तो इजी होगा.
ठीक है. ओके. द रीजन आई वाज आस्किंग यू दिस इज बिकॉज जस्ट टुडे इन द मॉर्निंग, अच्छा यूडेमी में किया है. ओके. Just today in the morning, my head was asking me as to how we should restructure this. So I said I have a class with my BTech students, so I'll discuss it with them. But I only have 4 students here, so it's hardly a major discussion here. But I just wanted to get your views on it. And it is amazing that none of you have done 307, which is the core that I teach there. But anyway, so okay, fine. So I'm continuing now. Yes, Aniket.
प्रॉब्लम ये आती है कि 307 हम करना भी चाहे तो भी MSL के कोर्सेज मोस्टली थर्ड ईयर में मिलते हैं. तो अगर ये कोर कोर्सेज सेकेंड ईयर में अगर पॉसिबल होता है तो आगे के इलेक्टिव करने में आसान जाएगा।
नहीं, वो तुम ठीक कह रहे हो अनिकेत, लेकिन कोई भी माइनर के कोर्सेज जो है वो थर्ड ईयर ऑनवर्ड्स ही मिलते हैं, बिकॉज आपके फर्स्ट और सेकंड ईयर में जो आपके जो मेजर जो आप जिस भी चीज में स्पेशलाइज कर रहे हो उसके कोर और उसका वो चल रहा होता है, तो दैट इज द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द करिकुलम। चाहे आप माइनर इन मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हो, चाहे माइनर इन एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप कर रहे हो, उनके कोर्स आपको थर्ड ईयर में ही अवेलेबल होते हैं। ये जो पिछले बार ऐसा हुआ था जब another gentleman was teaching these courses, उन्होंने सेकंड ईयर को भी अलाउ कर दिया था, फर्स्ट ईयर को भी अलाउ कर दिया था, सारे मतलब सारे स्टूडेंट्स को अलाउ कर दिया था, तो दैट इज व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग। बट अदरवाइज बेस्ड ऑन द करिकुलम you are supposed to do minor course only in your third year onwards.
Okay, क्योंकि MSL 305 and 306 are such like सेकंड ईयर में भी कर सकते हैं।
नहीं, वो कर जरूर सकते हैं, लेकिन ये हमारे ये सेंट्रल एडमिन बोलता है दैट इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू आइडेंटिफाई हु आर द स्टूडेंट्स हु आर एक्चुअली डूइंग अ माइनर इन एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, बिकॉज व्हेन दिस कोर्स हैड स्टार्टेड इट हैड स्टार्टेड ऑफ फॉर ओनली 30 पीपल। 30 लोग का बैच था हु वुड बी डेडिकेटेड एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, जिनको हम लोग इन कोर्सेज के थ्रू विल हेल्प देम, मेंटर देम, कम अप विद देयर बिजनेस प्लान, ताकि वो 2 साल के अंदर अपना इंक्यूबेट हो जाए। दैट वाज द एम. But as I can see in this class, there are 80 people registered, and I am sure none of them are entrepreneurs. So it is kind of defeating the purpose. It is acting more like an open elective rather than a dedicated minor in entrepreneurship, which is targeted towards creating more incubations on campus.
मैम एक्सक्यूज मी।
हाँ
मैम ऐसा करना चाहिए कि जैसे स्टार्टिंग में ही ना एक ऐसे फॉर्म भरवा लेना चाहिए आपको लोग की, मतलब जिन बच्चों को एक्चुअल में इंटरेस्ट है एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप में वही एमएसएल की तरफ जाएं मतलब।
नहीं, बट अभिनव इनके हिसाब से ईआरपी में ये सब पूरा है, लेकिन कोई नहीं लिख के देता है। और जब जब आप लोग लड़ाई कर रहे होते हैं स्लॉट के लिए, तब हम बोलते हैं कि आप माइनर करोगे, तो सब कहते हैं हाँ हाँ हम माइनर करेंगे, माइनर करेंगे। उसके बाद पता चला वो कोर्स करके गायब हो गए, कोई नहीं माइनर कर रहा है। सो अकॉर्डिंग टू द सेंट्रल एडमिन, स्टूडेंट्स लाई थ्रू देयर टीथ and they don't have any dedicated group of entrepreneurs who actually want to fulfill this track. और वो उसको वो पहचान ही नहीं पा रहे हैं फॉर सम रीजन, आई डोंट नो। हमने भी उनसे वही बोला था कि आप हार्ड कॉपी में उनसे फॉर्म में भरवाइए कि आर यू वांटिंग टू डू अ माइनर इन एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, इन दैट केस यू विल नीड टू डू दीज XYZ कोर्सेज।
और एक प्रॉब्लम ये आ जाती है कि जब अब थर्ड ईयर में अगर हमें मिल रहे हैं कोर्सेज माइनर करने के लिए, तो फिर सीट्स लिमिटेड होती है, तो फिर सीजी क्राइटेरिया आ जाता है, और फिर मतलब जो
देखो अनिकेत, इस पर्टिकुलर माइनर के लिए द ओनली क्राइटेरिया वाज स्टूडेंट्स हु आर एक्चुअली इंटरेस्टेड इन एक्सप्लोरिंग दिस एंटरप्रेन्योरियल पाथ, एंड उनको आईआईटी अपना सेटअप दे रहा है, उनको कोर्सेज करवा रहा है, उनको बता रहा है कैसे प्लान्स बनाओ, कैसे प्रोजेक्शंस बनाओ, ताकि वो ये 2 साल में अपने प्लान को वो करें और फिर हमारे इंक्यूबेटी में इंक्यूबेट हो जाए। नेचुरली जो 30 लोग हैं वो सारे के सारे तो नहीं इंक्यूबेट हो पाएंगे, कुछ लोग उसमें से ड्रॉप आउट हो जाएंगे फाइनली, लेकिन हम लोग उन 30 लोगों को कंप्लीट मतलब पैकेज दें कि उनको हम मार्केटिंग भी समझाएं, फाइनेंस भी समझाएं, स्ट्रैटेजी भी सब कुछ समझा दें, ताकि अगर उनको अपना आइडिया वो डेवलप करना है तो वो कर सकें। लेकिन वो 30 डेडिकेटेड लोग तो मिल ही नहीं रहे। अब क्या हो रहा है, बिकॉज वी ऑफर ऑल आर बीटेक कोर्सेज 80 का रजिस्ट्रेशन है, तो अब इसको भी खींच के 80 कर लिया है, बिकॉज द प्रोफेसर हु हैड स्टार्टेड दिस ऑफ वाज अलाउइंग 300 पीपल टू रजिस्टर फॉर अ कोर्स, तो अब वो 80 पे आके रुक गया। लेकिन इस 80 में भी हमको डेडिकेटेड एंटरप्रेन्योर्स जिनका मतलब मन है कि वो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप करें, वो है ही नहीं। So it is kind of just beating the entire purpose for which it was set up. It is behaving like open electives. Okay, anyway, sorry, I wanted to discuss this because the head was telling me कि can you please give some feedback कि कैसे उसको design करना चाहिए, क्या करना चाहिए. And I was trained in entrepreneurship at Babson, which is a #1 entrepreneurship school in the world. And this is the model that they follow, and this is what I wanted us to follow also. In fact, they give money to the top few ideas in the students. Seed funding उन लोग ही दे देते हैं ताकि वो students अपना शुरू कर दें जैसे भी उनको करना है, and they set up that ecosystem. So that is what IIT also wants to do, and that is why we had offered these courses कि भाई बीटेक के स्टूडेंट्स को मैनेजमेंट का ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं होता, उनको ये नहीं पता कि स्टार्टअप के क्या चैलेंजेस हो सकते हैं, तो आप उनके लिए स्पेशली डिजाइन कोर्सेज दीजिए जो हमारे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स बनना चाहते हैं. So I don't see that happening, but anyway. Yes, Abhinav.
मैम जैसे हमारे यहाँ क्लब्स में होता है, जैसे कोई, मैं काफ़ी क्लब्स में हूँ यहाँ पे एक्स्ट्रा करिक्स में, तो मैम यहाँ पे ऐसे है कि अगर आपने गूगल फॉर्म भर दिया तो मतलब कि डायरेक्टली मतलब नहीं है कि आपका सिलेक्शन हो गया, इसके बाद मैम आपको कुछ एक प्रोजेक्ट दे देते हैं वो, या उसके बाद फिर ना मैम इंटरव्यू हो जाता है, तो वो एक स्क्रीनिंग राउंड की तरह बिहेव करता है कि जो एक्चुअल में इंटरेस्टेड है उसमें आने के लिए वही आ पाते हैं.
हाँ नहीं, that is what we wanted when we had envisioned this course कि we should be able to identify students and teams who are actually wanting to explore this. बहुत सारे students हैं जिन्होंने फाइनल ईयर में प्लेसमेंट अपना एक साल के लिए डेफर कर दिया है कि हम अपना स्टार्टअप आइडिया को देखना चाहते हैं, हम उसको एक्सप्लोर करना चाहते हैं. एंड व्हेन आई फाइंड दी स्टूडेंट्स, जैसे मैं हम लोग के टाइम पे कोर्सेज होते तो हम लोग को कितना अच्छा मतलब आराम मिल जाता, हम लोग को ये सब समझ में आ जाता, अभी भी नहीं समझ में आता. जैसे I'm doing a CP with upgrad, which has already also been set up by one of our alumni only. तो वो हमसे बोलता है कि मैम उस टाइम पे आप क्यों नहीं ये सब कोर्सेज पढ़ाती थी, हम लोग को कितना टाइम लगा स्ट्रगल करने में, तो हम लोग को अगर ये वहीं पे मिल जाता तो कितना आसान हो जाता हम लोग के लिए. सो यू नो इट इज फॉर पीपल लाइक दैट, बट ना तो अब वी कांट डू दैट बिकॉज वी आर डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट स्टडीज. दिस इज समथिंग दैट द academic section has to identify for us, and when we had envisioned this, it was based basically on कि जो भी हमारे 30-40 स्टूडेंट्स होंगे जो एक्चुअली ये पाथ एक्सप्लोर करना चाहते हैं, हम उनको ट्रेन करें. बट वो हट के फिर 80 ले लीजिए क्योंकि पिछले बार हमने 250 लोग को अलाउ कर दिया था, तो अब 80 तो अलाउ कर दीजिए और सब लोग लड़ाई कर रहे हैं कोर्स लेने के लिए. सो इट इज बिकम लाइक अ वेरी पॉपुलर ओपन इलेक्टिव, दैट इज इट. सो यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. We should identify people who are actually interested in exploring this path of entrepreneurship. Because
अगर एक इंटरव्यू भी हो जाए तो मुझे लगता है मैम काम बन जाएगा.
हाँ जरूर हो सकता है. एवरीथिंग कैन बी डन. ऐसा थोड़ी है कि वी कांट आइडेंटिफाई अपने ही स्टूडेंट्स में से कि कौन लोग ये करना चाहते हैं, एंड जो करना चाहते हैं वो एकदम डेडिकेटेड करते हैं. अभी आप लोग का एक सीनियर है who's been mentored by me, he did all these courses, अब उसको incubate कर रही है FIT. So, you know, we are looking for these people. In the previous batch, I had 3-4 people who were working on real ideas. So, at least उनको एक encouragement मिल जाता है, जो उनके doubts हैं, जो उनके questions हैं, वो classes के through उन लोग solve कर सकते हैं, and then they feel more confident. But in this batch, I am not seeing that happen. So, ठीक है, I'll carry this feedback, and of course, then let's see what can be done. Okay, so thank you so much. In case you have any more feedback, please write to me, or you can tell me during class also. I would be very grateful for that. And because we will be looking at a not just a departmental curriculum review, but pan IIT curriculum review is due. So in that, I really hope to you know, restructure this entire minor in entrepreneurship. It has become very, it is not meeting the purpose at all. So that is what I would like to do. Okay, fine. So thank you so much, Abhinav, Ronit, Rupesh, and Aniket for your inputs. And now we'll get started with the rest of the class. Okay. So this is what the balance sheet data looks like. Now all sales are made on credit terms of net 30 days and are collected the following month. So if you're making a sale today, then you're collecting it in the next month. Okay. No bad debts are anticipated. That is, there is no debtor which will not pay. The accounts receivable on the balance sheet at the end of September thus will be collected in October. The October sales will be collected in November, and so on. Inventory on hand represents a minimum operating level or safety stock, which the company intends to maintain. COGS average 80% of sales. Inventory is purchased in the month of sales and paid for in cash. Other cash expenses average 7% of sales. Depreciation is $10,000 per month. Assume taxes are paid monthly and the effective income tax rate is 40% for planning purposes. Okay. So the annual interest rate on outstanding long-term debt and bank loans, that is notes payable, is 12%. There are no capital expenditures planned during the period and no dividends will be paid. The company's desired end of month cash balance is $80,000. The president hopes to meet any cash shortages during the period by increasing the firm's notes payable to the bank. The interest rate on new loans will be 12%. So if this is all the data that you're given, based on this, prepare a monthly pro forma income statement for October, November, December, and for the quarter ending December. Prepare monthly pro forma balance sheets at the end of October, November, December. Prepare both a monthly cash budget and pro forma statements of cash flows for October, November, and December, and describe your findings and indicate the maximum amount of bank borrowing that is needed. So basically, whenever a new company approaches a bank for a loan, these are the documents that the bank will ask for. So they will ask for projected income statements, projected balance sheets, projected cash budgets, cash flows, and then of course, based on this, what would be the maximum amount of borrowing that is required. Okay. So it's a very large numerical, so we'll do it in parts. Now my TA also wanted to solve it by hand. So this is the solution. Okay, now first of all, we will prepare what is called the sales schedule. Remember the schedule one by one aspect that I told you that this is what you should follow for cash budgets. The same thing, the same format is given here, and that's the best format to go. So we start with the sales forecast for September, October, November, and December. Now we know that in October, if I'm making 1,000 rupees of sales, then that entire 1,000 is credit sales because I will recover this only in November. Okay. So similarly, in November, they have 1,500 sales forecast. The entire 1,500 will be credit sales. In December, we have 3,000 forecast and 3,000 would be credit sales. Then the schedule 2 is the cash collection of the sales. So in this, we know that every month that we are making sales, we are collecting it in the following month. So in October, we will collect for September. In November, we'll collect for October. In December, we'll collect for November and so on. And we have 100% collections because there are no bad debts or losses. So this is the money that has come in terms of our sales revenue. Then we create our purchase schedule. So we have the ending inventory and the COGS that are given at the rate of 80% of sales. So the total amount needed is 1,060, and the opening inventory that we have based on the data given to us is 500. So that means net of 560 we are purchasing. Now all of you know based on the data that the month we are purchasing, we are paying for it in the same month. Okay. So that is why in the purchase disbursement schedule, you will see that 100% of the current purchases are being paid off in the same month. Okay. So similarly, you can create the purchase schedule for October. So we have 500 as the ending inventory. Then we have 800 as the COGS. The total required is 1,300. From this, we take out the opening inventory and we come out to 800. Okay, so this is how you calculate the purchases for each month. And then the entire purchase is being paid off. So this is the cash disbursement based on the purchase schedule. Any doubts, any questions anywhere, please ask. Now, based on this, we can prepare the cash budget. So we have the opening cash balance, which is given. Okay, then we have cash receipts in terms of collection from all the customers, that is our sales revenue. So we have total cash available for financing, which is here. In this, we take out the cash disbursements that we have made. So the first cash disbursement is that of purchases. Then other cash expenses are basically 7% of sales. So just calculate 7% of sales. So the total, and there are no other purchases, there are no other capital costs which are there. So we have total disbursements of 870. Okay, we have to maintain a minimum cash balance of 80, which is given in the question. So the total cash that we need is basically 950, which is nothing but 870 plus 80. Okay. Now we have 750 in terms of revenues and we need 950. So we have a shortfall of cash of 200. Now for this new borrowing, which is excess cash that we need, plus the interest that we'll need to pay on this, plus the tax liability which is due on us. So here what they're looking at is taxes as an accrued liability. The reason why they're doing that, students, is because income tax authorities allow you to recover business losses against the income of subsequent years. Or if you have these business losses and you have incomes later, then you can recover your accrued tax liability from there also. And that is why they have included tax here, even though the company is making a loss based on this accrual concept. So when all of this is added, it comes out to be 255.2. Okay. On a loan of 1200, that is the basic loan balance. The interest that is being paid is at 10%, so that is 12. And the tax that is being levied is 43.2. Okay. So this is the breakup of, your new borrowing of 255.2. Now, for November also, we have the opening cash balance. We add all the sales revenues. We get the total cash available with us. From this, we take out the cash disbursements in terms of purchases, other cash expenses, add the minimum cash balance to find out what is the total cash needed. Look at the shortfall, which is 1385 minus 1080, that's 305. Again, we have to have the excess cash plus the interest that we are paying plus the taxes that are going to be levied as the new borrowing for us. So this adds up and your loan balance has now increased to 1455.2. And similarly, in the third year, we calculate all the cash receipts, then we take out all the cash disbursements, we look at the cash shortfall, and we say that the new borrowing will be this much. Okay, so this is your cash budget. Now, let us look at the same cash budget through different methods of calculating the shortfall in cash. So let me change this. This is the projected income statement. Yeah. So for October, November and December, the sales that are projected are 1,000, 1,500 and 3,000 from the data. Less COGS at 80% is also given in the data. We've taken out 800, 1,200 and 2,400. So we have gross profit or gross margin of 200, 300 and 600 for the 3 months respectively. From this, we take out the other expenses, which are basically 7% of sales. So it's 70, 105 and 210. The depreciation given in the question is 10 for each month. So the income from operations or EBIT is 120, 185 and 380. From this, we take out the interest expense of 12, 14.5 and 18.4. This will give us the net income, that is your earnings before tax. And from this, we take out the tax at the rate of 40%. And this will give us the earnings after tax of 64.8, 102.3 and 217.7. Okay. As you can see, all of these figures are positive, indicating that the company is making an accounting profit. But what you can judge from the cash budget is that the company has a shortfall of cash. And if it wasn't for the new debt, then the company would have gone under as a startup. Okay, it would have died before it even took off. Then let us look at the balance sheet. Now in balance sheet, again, we have started off with current assets. We know that we have to have a cash balance of 80 all the time. We have accounts receivables because every month you're making sales, you're collecting it only in the next month. So we have accounts receivables of the sales amount of 1,000, 1,500 and 3,000 for the 3 months. We know that we have to keep an inventory balance of 500. So that is also there. And in fixed assets, the net fixed assets are actually depreciating at the rate of 10 every month. So it's coming down to 740, 730 and 720 each month. And our total assets are coming out to be 2320 in October, 2810 in November and 4300 in December. On the liability side, we have notes payable, which is basically all the debt that we are incurring now to make our cash shortfalls. So this is 1055.2, then 1442.9 and 2715.9. The long-term debt has continued to be at 4, and the equity is increasing at 864.8, 967.1 and 1184.1. This equity amount is nothing but your initial equity plus the profit that we are making. Okay, and this brings us to a total of 2320. As you can see, the actual amount of money that we need to raise or the notes payable are basically your the cap that we are making to complete our shortfall. Okay, let us look at the cash flow statement also. Now, I have also shared the detailed cash flow statement document with all of you, which is basically the material I used to use in Msl405, which is a core course for minor in management, where we used to teach them basics of accounting and finance. Okay, so you can read it in more detail from there. Then the third step is the calculation of the cash flow statement. We can start with the operating cash flows. So you have net income or profit figures that you have calculated of 64.8, 102.3 and 217. To this you add all the non-cash expenses in terms of depreciation and amortization, which is 10 in each case for each month. So we've added that. And the non-operating expense of interest. Okay, so we are adding the interest over here because it's a non-cash, it's a non-operating expense. So we want to see what are the basic operating cash flows that we have generated. Okay, so that's 12, 14.5 and 18.4. Now, working capital changes may, if there have been any increase in current assets, so we add them. So over here we can see that there has been basically a decrease in terms of the increase in our accounts receivable, so that we have shown as a negative cash flow. And the cash flow from operating activities basically comes after we add all of this up, and it is showing a negative cash flow generation from your operations of 213.2, 373.2 and 1254.6. So this is how we come to the cash flows from operating activities. There has been no investing activity, so there are no cash flows from there. In terms of financing activities, we have taken up loans to meet the shortfall. So we have taken up 255.2, which has been the financing that has been required to meet the shortfall, 387.7, 1273. And from this, we have actually paid out interest. So the net cash flow from financing activity has been 255.2, which is the money that has been raised, less the interest paid, that is 243.2. Okay, so the net cash that we are getting from all of these activities is plus 30 in October, because we actually have taken more loans, and the cash flow from operations has been substituted by that. And in October and November, we don't have any net cash coming in because we are just repaying all the shortfalls. The opening cash balance in the beginning was 50. And now we are maintaining a closing cash balance of 80 for the rest of the months. Okay, so as you can see, all of these are complicated ways to solve. The easiest is the cash budget that we have created in the beginning, and I would encourage all of you to follow this method only. Prepare the sales schedule first. Look at what is the money we are collecting. Then prepare the purchase schedule. Look at what is the money we are collecting. And then, of course, adjust all other expenses, all other items in your cash budget. Okay, so this is the detailed description of this particular question. Now, there are not many more examples of cash budgets over here. The rest of the questions are simpler questions, which are basically based on your cash conversion cycle ratios. Okay, so let us look at them. Okay, let us look at question number 9 here. Once we do this, then of course you can do question 8 and 10 because they're all the same. So question number 9 is this. Castillo Products Company, described below, improved its operations from a net loss in 2015 to a net profit in 2016. While the founders Cindy and Rob Castillo are happy about these developments, they are concerned about how long the firm took to complete its cash conversion cycle in 2016. Using the following financial statements to make your calculations, balance sheet items should reflect the averages of 2015 and 2016 accounts. So calculate the inventory to sale conversion period for 2016. Calculate the sale to cash conversion period for 2016. Calculate the purchase to payment conversion period for 2016 and determine the entire length of Castillo products cash conversion cycle for 2016. So basically तीनों ratios calculate करिए and then determine the length of the cash conversion cycle. So here again, this is the data that is given to you. This is the income statement for the 2 years for Castillo products. We have net sales of $9,000 and $1,500,000. We have less COGS of $540,000 in 2015 and $9,000 in 2016, giving us a gross profit of $360,000 in 2015 and $600,000 in 2016. From this, we took out the expenses on marketing, general and admin, and depreciation to give us an EBIT of minus $20,000 in 2015. To this, we added the interest cost, or maybe subtracted the interest cost from interest to get an EBT of minus 65,000. Now here we are not showing any accrued taxes, so the taxes are zero because anyway the company is making a loss. And similarly for 2016, we've taken out marketing, general and admin, depreciation expenses to get a positive EBIT of $160,000, from which we took off the interest charges of 60,000 and we landed up with the EBT of plus $100,000. So taxes were levied at $25,000 and we got the net income at $75,000. So this is just the income statement that has been given to you. And now we have been given the balance sheet. Okay. So in balance sheet, we have cash amount of 50,000 in 2015 and $20,000 in 2016. We have accounts receivable of $200,000, $280,000 in 2016. We have inventories of $400,000 and $500,000 in 2016. So total current assets have added up to $650,000 in 2015 and $800,000 in 2016. Gross fixed assets are $450,000 in 2015 and $540,000 in 2016. The accumulated depreciation has been $1,000 in 2015 and $140,000 in 2016. When we take out the gross depreciation, then we get the net fixed assets of $350,000 in 2015 and $400,000 in 2016, giving us a total asset value of $1 million in 2015 and 1.2 million in 2016. Then we look at the current liabilities in terms of accounts payables. It is 130,000 2015. Accruals are 50,000. Bank loan is 90,000, giving us a total current liability of 270,000. To this we add long-term debt of 300,000, the common stock value at 150,000. The additional paid in capital, that is all the premium that you have received, is 200,000, and the retained earnings of $80,000, which is again bringing up the total liability side to $1 million. Okay, and similarly we have figures given for 2016. Accounts payable 160,000, accrual 70,000, bank loan 100,000, total current liabilities of 330,000. Add to this long-term liabilities of debt, common stock, additional paid in capital and retentions, giving you a total balance sheet total of 1.2 million. So if you are given this data, you are asked to calculate all of these ratios. Okay, so let us see the solution. Okay, So here you can see we have been asked to calculate the ratios for 2016, I think. Just a second. Yes, for 2016. So inventory to sale conversion period would be average inventories upon COGS divided by 365. So let me see in the question, have they asked us to take average values of these numbers? Just a second. Yes. So we have been asked to take balance sheet items should reflect the averages of 2015 and 2016 accounts, and we are calculating it for 2016. Okay. So average inventory figure has been 500,000 and the COGS for 2016 has been 900,000 divided by 365, which gives an inventory to sale conversion period of 202.7 days. Okay. Similarly, sales to conversion period is average receivables upon net sales divided by 365. So average receivables are $280,000 upon 1.5 million, that is the sales divided by 365, which gives us 68.13 days. Then for purchase to payment conversion period, the formula is average payables plus average accrued liabilities upon COGS divided by 365. So we've taken average payables at $160,000 plus $70,000 of average accrued liabilities divided by the COGS divided by 365. So that gives us 93.27 days. And the length of the cash conversion cycle is nothing but inventories to sale conversion period plus sales to cash conversion period minus purchase to payment conversion period, which gives us a total of 177.56 days. That is, the company is taking nearly 6 months to convert cash back to cash. Okay, so it is a very slow moving, inefficient company if you look at its peers. But maybe if it is highly technology intensive manufacturing concern, then maybe this is a average period that they take. Okay. So the other questions are also based on these formulae only. So there is no problem. You can just apply the formula and solve this. So this part is very easy. It is just formula based. It is, there's some quick marks to be earned over here if you just remember the formula. Okay. So you can do question 8 and 10 yourselves because they are all the same. 10 is also the same. You're given income statements and balance sheets and you're asked to calculate these ratios. Okay. Now in the cash budget, as I have told you students, when we do ask you questions in the majors, it will not be a very detailed question because it is very time consuming. So we'll give you smaller aspects. Maybe we tell you to create just the sales and purchase schedule and make a basic cash budget or stuff like that. So it will not be very complicated. Okay. But this is how you make that. Any doubts, any questions so far? Also, since Aniket was sharing that he's done some Udemy courses, you can find some Y Combinator courses available online. A lot of your seniors in BTech have done that. Very good courses which help you to understand how you can scale up your product as an entrepreneur, and of course it looks at it from a VC point of view as well. So those are also very good courses. You need to register, but then the rest of it is free. Okay. So any doubts, any questions in terms of cash budgets or the cash conversion cycle ratios, please ask. Okay, only 3 people are there. Okay, so if there are no doubts or questions, then I would like to start with the next chapter, which is a very easy chapter, which is an extension of these ratios that we have done in the previous chapter. And now we will look at some more ratios in more greater depth, which are very peculiar to a startup, okay, or a new venture. So I think my screen is shared, but let me share it again. Okay. So we have done the cash flows and now we can come to this. Okay, here again, I will be uploading this. Harshita, I haven't uploaded all this material, na ratio analysis वगैरह का.
No, ma'am, I don't think so that you have.
Okay, so I will upload it abhi. Anyway, it's not for your minor, it's for later, but I will upload it. Now this again, I have added up the material on ratio analysis as a part of my MSL 302 course. For any of you who are interested in reading about ratios in greater detail, okay? But of course, where the ratios concerned with startups are concerned, we'll only focus on that for our exams. But this material I will upload. It has all the details, very detailed material, nearly 60 pages. So for all of you who are interested in reading about ratios in general, you can do that. Even if you don't become an entrepreneur, but you work in the financial domain, you'll be using these ratios on a daily basis. All these consulting giants use these ratios, okay? And then you have Reliance's actual Reliance ratios as well. So all of that is also there, and then you have a description of these ratios as well. So this material is very comprehensive. And now let us deal with just startups and the ratios which are important for startups. Okay. So basically ratios, students, are the most prolific financial analytics tool used worldwide. So if you talk of Ernst & Young, McKinsey, BCG, all of these technical consultancy giants, they are all basing the analysis on these ratios. Okay, so it's the most prolific financial analytics tool. And you can imagine that for a startup, these ratios would not just determine the basic survival of the startup, but also help investors in understanding whether the company itself is efficient on an operational level or at a financial level. Okay, so we look at all of these ratios which investors also look at when they're trying to evaluate whether they will invest in a startup or not. And even when a startup is going to traditional financiers like banks and NBFCs, then too they will look at some typical ratios to understand whether the company is worth it in terms of parting with their funds. Okay. Now, we know that whenever we study a startup, we always look at its life cycle stage, and everything is kind of linked to the stage of the startup. So when you have a development and startup stage new venture, then the kind of financing that it attracts is called seed financing or startup financing. And at this time, the financial ratios that are most used are the cash burn rates and the liquidity ratios. That is basically how quickly is the company burning cash, and how liquid is it? Does it have the money that is required to meet its short-term obligations and payments or not? And who are the people who are using these measures? Of course, the entrepreneur himself and the business angels or the seed investors who have just come on board. Then when you have actually started off and you are in your survival stage, that is, you're trying to move towards your break-even point, then you get what is called Series A or first round of financing. And at this time, all your conversion period ratios that we have just done become very, very critical to see how efficiently the company or startup is performing its operations. Apart from this, the cash burn, liquidity ratios are also equally important. And at this time, not just the entrepreneur, the angels, but also VCs may become interested in these ratios, because your VCs are waiting to fuel that rapid growth rate, the more quickly you come to that. When you enter the rapid growth phase, then you get what is second round or Series B financing, you get mezzanine financing, you get liquidity stage financing, and at this time you have commercial banks who start to show interest in your venture. Leverage ratios come in and they start playing a role. Leverage ratios is basically the ratios that see how much of debt you have on your balance sheet, okay, and whether you are able to repay that debt or not. And as you grow, naturally profitability, efficiency ratios come to the forefront, and most investors are interested in understanding how you are recovering their investment, what are the return ratios, what are the profitability that is coming in. Okay. If you have any doubts, any questions, please ask. Now, financial ratios are basically the relationship between two or more financial variables or between financial variables and time. So when I say between two or more financial variables, for example, when I'm looking at conversion ratios, I'm looking at inventory versus COGS over time, or we can also look at a financial variable and time. So that is the gross profit trend. So how has the gross profit behaved over time? How has the net profit behaved over time? So we can have financial variable over time, or we can have comparison between two financial variables also. Any relationship between such variables. Now, in ratio analysis techniques, there are basically three kinds that are deployed. First is called a trend analysis. As I told you, if you're trying to look at the movement of a variable over time, so suppose you want to say what is the growth in sales, and you map sales over a 5-year period. And just like we had forecasted year-on-year growth, that is what is called trend analysis. So you're looking at the trend the pattern over time. Then you have what is called a cross-sectional analysis. That is where you're trying to look at the same company over time and how have different ratios been performing over time, just to understand the internal management of that company better. And students, it's not that only the external sources are looking at your ratios. Ratios become a very effective management accounting tool as well. When I say management accounting, I mean that managers internally use ratios to understand where the problems lie, where there are inefficiencies, how to set up reward and penalty functions, and basically how to manage their operations internally. Okay. And then, of course, you have what is called industry comparable analysis or benchmarking, where you're looking at your company's performance, but you're comparing it with an industry benchmark, or you're wanting to see how your company is doing vis-a-vis the peers, vis-a-vis the industry, and that is called the industry comparable analysis. Now, as finance professors, when we do research, we look at least 10 years data, and we look at least 500 companies or a cross section of companies across that sector to basically be able to say anything about a particular ratio. So that is the depth in which we go before we make a comment. So basically the point of caution that I'm trying to tell you here is that you can never form a complete judgment just by looking at one ratio or a set of ratios which are static. You have to look at the trend, you have to look at the cross section, you have to compare it with the industry to come out with any meaningful judgment or perception. Okay. Okay. So these are the different descriptions of the three analysis. As I told you, whenever we do research, we do all of these three to be able to come up to any kind of conclusion, and that too for a very large sample size and for a reasonably long period of time. Now we have already seen what cash burn is and how important it is, but we will look at the complete ratio here again. The cash burn is the cash a venture expends on its operating and financing expenses, also in its investments in assets. Now, when a venture is growing, it is not just that you're running your operations, you're also trying to scale up your operations. You're also trying to expand your operations. So you're spending a lot of money in investments. Okay. So your cash burn basically is the income statement based operating, interest, and tax expenses. So all of the expenses that you're making, plus all your expansion expenses. So when you're expanding, you're not just increasing your inventories as your operational expense. You're not only meeting the changes in payables and accrued liabilities, so whatever extra your current liabilities are providing, plus you're also making capex. You're also buying fixed assets. Okay. So your cash burn takes into account all of these expenses. Now, the cash burn rate is the cash burn for a fixed period of time, typically a month. So for startups, you typically have monthly cash burn rates because they burn up cash really quickly and they are fighting for liquidity on a monthly basis. Cash build is the situation where your net sales are more than the increase in receivables. So basically any cash that you're basically building into the business by selling more than your increase in receivables. So cash build rate is also calculated on a monthly basis. So we basically see every month how much of cash you're building, how much of cash you're burning, and what is the net cash burn. So net cash burn is a typical situation in a startup where the cash burn exceeds the cash build in a specified time period, and also cash burn less cash build. So we can calculate it as cash burn minus cash build, and typically in a startup you will have more cash burn than cash build. Okay, so these are the terms that I used. And net cash burn rate can also be calculated for a month, typically by, if you have an annual rate, then you just divide it by 12 to get the monthly rate. Now there are 4 buckets of ratios, and they are liquidity ratios, which basically takes care of your cash position to see whether you have enough money coming in to meet your short-term obligations. So people like suppliers, employees, if they come up and say, please give me my salary or give me my payment, then do you have the money to meet that or not? The second bucket is called solvency ratios, which is a more long-term solvency position of the company, where we look at whether the company has enough earnings coming in to actually meet the payment of long-term liabilities, like a loan repayment or debenture repayment. Do you have the money to make a 5-year, 10-year loan payment or not? So that is called solvency ratios, which is what banks and all look at when they are trying to evaluate a company. The third bucket is called efficiency ratios, where, as the name suggests, you're trying to see how efficient the operations are. So all your conversion ratios will be a part of efficiency ratios. These efficiency ratios are also called activity ratios because they denote the activity level in a company. They are also called turnover ratios because they are used to indicate the turnover rate of inventory, of debtors, and all of that. So that is the third bucket. And the fourth bucket, which is the most popular across the world, is called the profitability ratios, where you basically look at gross profit, net profit, operating profit, various returns, return on equity, return on capital employed, return on assets, and so on. Okay, and these are the ratios that find their way to newspapers and all when we discuss about the profitability of companies and so on. Okay, so we look at each of these ratios in the context of a startup. So liquidity ratios are the ratios that indicate the ability to pay short-term liabilities when they come due. Liquid assets is the sum of a venture's cash and marketable securities plus its receivables. The net working capital as a concept is nothing but current assets minus current liabilities. So basically what we are trying to see is what is the safety cushion that your current assets are providing to pay off your current liabilities? Okay, so do we have more current assets than current liabilities? In that case, we feel that the company has some sort of liquidity cushion. Okay, because all your current assets are typically, they can be converted into cash and they can be used to pay off your current liabilities. Okay, Harshita, please let me know when we have 2 minutes left so that I can wrap up the session. And in case anyone has any doubts, any questions, you can please ask.
Sure, ma'am.
Thanks, Harshita. Okay. Now, remember I told you that the second bucket is called solvency ratios. Another name that they go by is called leverage ratios also. So solvency or leverage ratios. These are the ratios that indicate the extent to which the venture has used debt and its ability to repay its debt obligations. So where liquidity is looking at short-term obligations, leverage ratios or solvency ratios are looking at long-term debt obligations. The loan principal amount is nothing but the dollar amount that is borrowed from a lender like a bank. Interest, as all of you know, is the dollar amount paid on the loan to a lender as a compensation for making that loan. So basically it is maybe a reward that is given to the loan provider for parting with his funds and for allowing you access and utilization of those funds. Now, every company, what they do is, instead of waiting for the 10th year to make that final lump sum payment, every year the company keeps apportioning a part of its profit into a loan redemption reserve, which is also called a sinking fund. That is, you keep making up the periodic portion of the debt principal into that fund, and you keep making of the principal payments through that fund. Okay, so that at the end of that year your liability is nil. So remember, I had told you about the profit and loss appropriation account. So one of the reserves that goes in is also called loan redemption reserve. And here you keep repaying the portion of the debt principal through that reserve every year. Now, this was an example that was given in one of your chapters, the MPC leverage ratio performance. This is just for illustrative purposes. If there is a company that has these following leverage ratios, and we'll do all of these ratios one by one in detail. We have a ratio which is called total debt to total assets. Basically, we want to see how much of our total assets are funded by debt. So it was 59.8% in 2015, and it increased to 61.3% in 2016. Okay. Then we have another ratio which is called equity multiplier, which is basically your total equity upon the total assets. So that was 2.491 in 2015 and 2.587 in 2016. Then the current liabilities to total debt, that is how much of your total external liability is current and how much of it is long-term or total. Then we see that for this company, the current liabilities are actually making up more than 50%, 52.9% of the total debt, and which has increased to 64.9% in 2016. The interest coverage ratio was 4.67. Interest coverage ratio is nothing but your operating profit divided by interest, which basically gives you an idea of how many more times are you earning compared to your interest, and how much of earnings you have to repay the interest amount. Okay, and it has come down to 3.20 in 2016. The fixed charges coverage ratio is another ratio which we'll do, which basically looks at all of your EBIT divided by all the fixed charges that you have to pay. So that could be interest, that could be lease rent in case you have taken any machinery or equipment on lease, or it could be any other fixed financial obligation that you are bearing. Okay, and in 2016 it has come down to 1.87. Okay, so what this basically tells you is how the leverage ratios are shaping up for the company. So this is kind of a trend analysis, and this gives the manager some sort of an indicator to see whether the leverage risk is increasing, it's coming down, or is it remaining stable. Okay. And of course, the third and fourth buckets are profitability and efficiency ratios, which are basically looking at how profitable the venture is and also how efficiently the venture is basically managing its operations. There's another term that is used, which is called interest tax shield. Now, across the world, most governments provide interest as a tax deductible expenditure. Okay, and we have been using interest in our P&L also. You see that after we calculate our operating profit, from that we are deducting interest before we pay our taxes. Okay, so basically, suppose you're paying 10% interest on a loan, but because of the tax deductible nature of interest, you actually end up saving tax, which you would have paid out if you had no interest on your P&L. Okay, so this portion that is indirectly being financed by the government, or the tax saving that you're having because you're deploying interest, is called the interest tax shield. Very simply put, it is interest into the tax rate. Okay, so that is your interest tax shield that you are getting. So your net effective cost of debt actually becomes interest into 1 minus T, where T is the tax rate levied on the company. Then you have no PAT, which is nothing but the net operating profit after taxes, or EBIT, times 1 minus the firm's tax rate. Suppose there are two companies. One has been funded by debt and one has been funded by equity. If you just want to look at the operating performance of the two companies without taking into account how they have financed their business, you don't want to take into account the way they have been financed, then you calculate what is called no PAT, which is net operating profit after taxes, or EBIT, times 1 minus the firm's tax rate. Basically, you are just ignoring any interest expenses and you're treating both companies as equals. Then we have what is called return on assets, which is nothing but EAT, that is the earnings after taxes, plus interest that you pay to your loan providers into 1 minus T, which is the the effective tax, the interest rate upon your total assets, because your total assets are funded both by equity providers as well as your debt providers. Okay, so we look at all of this in detail. These are just some terms which are given to you. The ROE model is called the return on equity model. This is the final amount that your equity providers or your promoters or your owners are getting. And all your investors who are equity investors are looking at the ROE to understand whether they are earning a good return on their investment or not. Okay, so we'll do all of these ratios in detail. Again, you can put up all of these ratios from year to year. You can compare it with the industry also, and you can say whether the MPC company is lower than the industry average, or is it higher than the industry average, and so on, just to make a benchmark vis-a-vis the industry. If you're trying to pitch yourself against the best player in the sector, then it is called a benchmarking exercise. If it's a domestic player, then you call it a domestic benchmarking exercise. If it's an external or foreign player, then you say that I am doing a international benchmarking exercise. Okay, so you can do a trend analysis, you can do a benchmarking analysis, you can do a cross-sectional analysis. Everything is possible through ratios. Okay, so this is just another illustration based on that. Okay, so these are just some terms that we have mentioned on this, and again, just like other times, we will do this detailed case study to understand each and every ratio step by step. Okay, so are there any doubts, any questions so far? Okay, so we can start with this case study then. Okay, again, we have some tables that contain the financial statement data for medical products company or MPC, which you are considering purchasing. So you're an investor who's considering purchasing this new startup. So you're trying to evaluate whether it's a good buy or not. Okay, so MPC will serve as a basis for our examples of ratio construction and analysis. MPC produces and sells a diversified product line of scientific medical instruments that monitor a patient's vital signs. Okay, so they're basically a medical instruments company. The venture's medical instruments are used in hospitals, medical clinics, and retirement home facilities. 3 years of balance sheets and 2 years of income statements are available. While you believe that this venture is promising, you would like to consider the opportunity more thoroughly. So even though it looks very promising, but you would like to go through the numbers and see whether it actually makes a good sense to buy this company or not. So how will you use ratios there? So first, let us look at the data that is available to us. We have income statements for 2 years, 2015 and 2016. You can see by now I'm sure that these statements are very familiar to you. So we have net sales of $438,000 less COGS of $285,000, which gives us a gross profit of $153,000, less admin expenses of $45,000, marketing expenses of $32,000, R&D expenses of $20,000, and depreciation of $14,000 gives us an EBIT of $42,000. From this, we take out the interest expenses of $12,000. So we get EBT of $30,000. And from this, we take out taxes at the rate of 30% of $9,000, which gives us a net income of $21,000. Similarly, we have figures for 2016. Okay. Then we can have a look at the 3 years balance sheets for 2014, 15, and 16. We have cash and marketable securities of $10,000. We have receivables of $60,000. We have inventories of $70,000, giving us total current assets of $140,000. Then we have gross plant and equipment, less accumulated depreciation of $28,000, giving us a net plant and equipment value of $177,000, which gives us a total assets value of $317,000. Now, on the liability side, we have payables of $47,000. We have short-term bank loans of $40,000. We have accrued liabilities of $8,000, which give us total current liabilities of $95,000. And we have long-term debt of $100,000. And we have owner's equity of $122,000, which gives us a total liabilities and equity of $317,000 again. So similarly, we have the data given for 2015 and 2016. Then we also have statement of cash flows for 2015 and 2016. So we have cash flow from operating activities where we start with net income of 2015. We add back depreciation. We see if there have been any increase in receivables. If yes, then we deduct that. We see if there have been any increase in inventories. If yes, then we deduct that. We see if there have been any increase in payables. If yes, we add that. And we add any increase in accrued liabilities. Basically, we add all increase in current liabilities and we subtract all increase in current assets. So we get net cash flow from operations of $6,000. We don't have any investing cash flows, so that is zero. And we have cash flow from financing activities. Basically, we have taken a loan of $4,000 and we have also repaid a long-term debt of $10,000. So our net cash flow from financing is actually minus $6,000, indicating a net outflow. And the net change, excluding the cash account, is zero. There has been no net change in the cash. The beginning cash and marketable securities has been $10,000. And so the ending balance is also $10,000. Similarly, we have the amount for 2016. And this is the data that has been given to you. So I think we will start with the actual ratios in the next class so that we can build one by one. All the data is already there, which I have highlighted to you. And I think it will be better if we start with the ratios all together in one go. So is that okay, Harshita?
Yes, ma'am, sure. 5 minutes ready, we can just start in the next class.
Yeah, so Ronit, Rupesh and Aniket who are here, if you have any doubts, any questions so far, please ask. It could be related to what we are discussing right now or your minor, anything.
No, ma'am, I guess.
ठीक है, तो सब लोग अच्छे से पढ़ाई करना. 17th we will not have a class. Please go through all the material. In case you have any doubts, any questions, please feel free to reach out to Harshita or Samriddhi or me, anyone, so that we can help you in your preparation. Okay, don't feel कि class नहीं हो रहा है तो हम कैसे पूछे. You can always reach out to any one of us. We will all help you. We are all there to help you. Okay.
Ma'am, will we get the numericals, the kind of we discussed in the class?
Yes. So your numericals pattern will be based exactly on the kind of numericals we have done in class. It will not be a something totally new that you have not heard any time. It is all that we have done in class and which you have practiced.
So, do we have to make all those tables like properly in the exam, or we can just?
Yes, please try and make tables, because in solving any numerical in finance, it is very important to label the numbers. If you don't label it properly, if you don't show it properly, then it can lead to a lot of confusion. So please just don't put numbers there. Please write कि ये वाला asset है, ये है, ये वो है, so that it becomes clear to us कि आप क्या चीज को add कर रहे हैं, क्या चीज को subtract कर रहे हैं.
And ma'am, what will be the exam pattern? Like it will be subjective plus objective or objective?
No, so Rupesh, it will be a mix of both subjective and numericals. We will try and give you a 50-50% mix of both numericals and your subjective theory. But in theory, as I was telling Ronit, we are not going to ask you direct questions, define this, define that. It will be more application based or applied, where you will be able to write in your own words. But yes, if there are some concepts, then you should be able to write about those concepts in the correct manner.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So all the best to all of you. Harshita, please send out that email. And then when we meet after the minors on 24th, we will continue with the ratio analysis case study. Okay. So
Okay.
okay. Thanks, Harshita. All the best, all of you, and do well. Okay. Take care. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harshita. Thank you, everyone.
Ma'am.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah. Bye, ma'am.